All right, it's time for a car vlog. I haven't become a communist. I just don't want to do my vlog with sunglasses on, so I'm going back to my commie glasses. Update in the Artur Pawlowski case. Artur Pawlowski is the street pastor out of Alberta, Canada, who made headlines as the get out pastor when Alberta Health Services came to his church to inspect during COVID to make sure they were all COVID compliant. I think it was during Easter. He told them in no uncertain terms to get out, and he used some other rhetoric, which I said at the time was only going to cause them to, in fact, come back with the warrant that he was demanding that they have.
Get out of this property, immediately get out. Get out of this property, immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property, immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property. You'll come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out! Out of this property, you Nazis! Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Get out of this property and don't come back without a warrant. Out, Nazi. Out! Do not come back without a warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here. Gestapo is not welcome here. Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths. You Gestapo, Nazi, communists, fascists. Can you imagine those psychopaths? Passover, the holiest Christian festival in a year, and they're coming to intimidate Christians during the holiest festival? Unbelievable.
They came back with the warrant. They issued him a ton of fines. Oh my goodness, they ultimately, in fact, charged him with mischief, incitement of mischief, and breach of bail conditions for a speech. It's not a speech, what's it called? A sermon he gave in Coutts, Alberta, for the protesters out in Coutts, Alberta. He was charged with mischief and convicted of mischief for giving a sermon in which he referenced the solidarity movement out of Poland, from where he came. For those of you who don't know Artur Pawlowski's story, I had him on the channel at least once. I think it might have been twice. We got into his history. No, it was once, and I had his son on, Nathaniel Pawlowski. Immigrant from Poland, moved to Greece to escape communism in Poland, went from Greece to Canada for a better life, and found the invasion of communism that he has now found in Canada. Has been an activist street pastor for a long time, shelters the homeless, provides services to the homeless. And during COVID, he made international headlines when he told Alberta Health Services where to go, what they were, and then he suffered the political consequences for it. Convicted on mischief charges for having delivered a sermon to the protesters in Coutts, Alberta. He was also convicted on breaching bail conditions, and today he had his sentencing. It was a call-in. At least the number I had was a call-in. And my goodness, I understand there are some elderly people out there who might be technologically deficient, but the amount of people on the call-in who could not figure out how to mute their mics, it made it very difficult to hear what was going on. I did my best. But then at one point, whoever was hosting the call unmuted everybody's mic. You heard absolutely nothing for the most important part of the hearing, the actual sentence itself. I got the sentence. It was 60 days, but time served for reasons which I'm going to explain in a second. The judge sounded fair enough, was going through the whole, what the Crown was asking for, what the defense was asking for, what the law is, what the case law that was submitted, what are the guiding principles when it comes to sentencing. If you can believe this, and you don't have to believe it because it's true, the Crown was asking for 8 to 10 months in prison for the mischief charge. The Crown went by not summary conviction, which is the lesser way of proceeding on a charge, which is a hybrid charge of a charge that can be pursued by summary conviction or by indictment. They proceeded by indictment as opposed to summary conviction, which is the more serious of the crime, so the maximum sentence is 10 years. So now he's going to factor that in. The Crown proceeded by indictment on the mischief charge. And so the maximum sentence for a mischief charge by indictment, 10 years in jail. The Crown was actually asking for 8 to 10 months imprisonment, above and beyond the time that was already served, which was going to count towards any time to be served. Artur Pawlowski, for those of you who don't recall, spent 56 days in jail, which would have counted towards 74 days of his sentence, because the 56 days was remand, pre-trial detention, so it counts for time and a half or something along those lines. The Crown was asking for 8 to 10 months in jail for mischief charges and 1 day in jail for breach of bail. The defense was asking for 7 to 10 days in jail and 1 day for breach of bail. I thought it was weird that they were asking for any time whatsoever. But then I quickly learned that the time already served would have counted towards any sentence, and such that asking for 7 to 10 days, which would have been like the lesser of any mischief conviction sentencing, would have been, it would have made sense, because he would not have served a day in jail. As it is, he's not going to serve a day in jail because the sentence was for 60 days in jail, but because he already did 56 days in remand, it's time served. The Crown asked for 8 to 10 months. The judge went through all of the guiding principles when it comes to sentencing, fairness, similarity to other convictions, deterrence, the mitigating factors for and against. And the judge said, I am not taking as a mitigating factor against, for a longer time in jail, the fact that Artur Pawlowski was speaking out against the government while he was out. The Crown was actually asking as an aggravating factor that him speaking out against the government while out of jail should be an aggravating factor for a longer sentence. So the judge said no to that. The judge said, some aggravating factors is there's absolutely no remorse, as there isn't, because Artur Pawlowski does not think he did anything wrong and thinks, as do many other liberty-minded, Constitution-loving Canadians and people out there, that he did nothing wrong. The harm is not limited to the victims and potential actual, it's also to society in general, so the judge just said. The harm of the violation of the law, society in general. The judge went through parity in sentencing. It has to fit the crime. It has to be proportionate to the infraction. It has to be similar to other defendants' sentences under like circumstances. And after going through all of that, although I didn't hear a word of the end because of the unmuting of everybody on that call, I was following Rebel News, Ezra Levant, and it turns out he was sentenced to 60 days in jail, but no time because time served because of his 56 days in jail, or 54, whatever it was. That's the outcome. People were praising this as a massive success. Freedom, finally a big W in the column of the freedom fighters. I took to Twitter, and not to be the wet blanket or the Debbie Downer, I said, no, this isn't victory. This isn't justice. This is just the cessation of an injustice. And that's the world in which we live. The cessation of the injustice somehow is the victory for the people. It was an affront to the Constitution from day one. Everybody knew it. It pissed the government off that Artur Pawlowski was doing the international rounds, going on Tucker Carlson, letting the world know what a communist, fascist, tyrannical regime we have in Canada under Trudeau. And the government didn't like that. And so 60 days in jail, time served. That's justice. That's the victory, that he doesn't go back to jail. It's going to be a long, hard slog and a long, hard march for Canadians to take their country back from this regime. Maybe this is a step in the right direction. It did sound like the judge got it right, understood what was going on, and came down with the right decision. But that's it. The big W is just the cessation of the punishment, the cessation of the injustice. Artur Pawlowski, enjoy your freedom. It was hard fought and you deserve it. That's the vlog. And oh my goodness, my kid's been playing in a playground for the last however long. And there's a storm a brewing, people. See you all on the flip side, dude meisters. Peace out. Booyah.
What is wrong with those sick psychopaths?